Haley, it's so good to see you again.
Good to see you too. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How was school this week?
School is all right. I just still feel kind of overwhelmed about everything.
Okay.
So,
before we kind of jump into that a little bit, I just want to remind you of some of the technical stuff we talked about last week, just to refresh your memory because I know it was a lot. Just that our session's filmed. Because we're in the University Counseling Center. I'm going to share it with my supervisor. We talked about how I'm a mandatory reporter. We talked about how counseling is voluntary. So we're kind of going through a lot. I just want to make sure no questions came up for you this week.
No, not really.
Okay, and I know we had talked about feeling a little overwhelmed and anxious about this whole college process, specifically kind of disappointing your mom potentially by wanting to go somewhere far away or feeling like you have to stay close so you don't disappoint your mom. When you were saying you were feeling overwhelmed just a second ago, is it still with all that college stuff?
Yeah, I just think everything's kind of ramping up. And so in terms of school talking about it and things like that, that it's everything coming at once that I don't really know how to process it.
Everything coming at once?
Yeah, so last week, we went to a college fair.
Okay.
And it was a huge college fair in Hartford.
Okay.
At the convention center. And there's hundreds of schools that go. So we went, and it was a school trip with some other juniors and stuff. The counselors kind of chose people to go. So in some ways it was nice that I was one of the people that got chosen. But we went, and it was just super overwhelming because it was so many schools, and I feel like people were kind of approaching the fair a whole lot of different ways. So I had some friends that were kind of, jumping around to every school like it was like candy, and trying to get all of the pens and stuff like that. And then I had other friends that were super intentional about what schools they went to and only visited a few. And I think I was kind of in the middle. I just really kind of followed my friends around because I didn't want to not make the most of it because, there's all these schools from all over the country that I want to, take advantage of them being there. Sure. But I also, too, was really overwhelmed by just the sheer amount of options. And, for me, I don't really know what I want to do. And every school has undecided, so that didn't really help narrow things down. So we did that, and then afterwards we came back to school, and now they're kind of doing these workshops where counselors are going into classrooms and talking to you about the college process, and I guess I just didn't realize how in-depth it is, that it's I just don't really know where to start.
So the fair was overwhelming, also kind of reminded you that you're uncertain about what major it is you even want to go toward, and then they're talking about the whole process in class, and it's more work than you were anticipating.
Yeah, I mean, so my counselor pulled up this document and kind of projected it on the board to my class about all, kind of a checklist of what you have to do to senior year. And while in some ways it was nice that they kind of identified everything that you needed to do, in other ways I didn't realize how much there was. Sure. It was almost 2 pages, single spaced. It was crazy. So really just kind of realizing, from something simple letter of recommendation. I don't know why I didn't even think that there's a formal way to ask for a letter of recommendation. Sure. I just kind of thought teachers that I vibe with won't have a problem writing a letter for me, but I didn't realize it's more of asking and doing a thank you note and things like that. So so just little things. I know you obviously complete your applications and do stuff like that, but getting a request for transcripts to be sent. I thought the school just did that for you. So it really kind of, it's all this information coming at once, and I just don't really know how to process it.
So again, that kind of overwhelmingness is coming out. Are you feeling like you can't do it?
I don't know if it's so much that I can't do it. I think it's just I really don't know where to start. Okay. And, I don't have older siblings. It's just me and my brother, and I'm the oldest. So, you know, trying to navigate this process for the first time. And I mean, my mom went to college, but my mom went to college, you know, 20, 30 years ago. Yeah. So the process is different than what it was now. Like, I feel like it's just constantly changing. So while she will have, you know, suggestions and, you know, reminisce on how it was done when she went to school, I just feel like the counselors always talk about, like, oh, new this year, new in the past couple of years. Sure. So it's like, obviously she won't know what that is because she didn't experience it.
Yeah, I was the same way. I was the oldest of 4 when I was applying for college, and both my parents went too, so I thought it would be no big deal. They would, like, be able to help, but so much has changed that it really was difficult. My parents, like, knew some things, but like you were saying, a million things changed, and I kind of felt like, holy moly, like, I thought with having parents that had gone to college, like, I would totally breeze through it, no problem, but it was really difficult and really overwhelming.
Yeah.
How, have you, like, chatted with your mom about how you're feeling this overwhelming?
I haven't really chatted with her. I think it's not necessarily... Well, I mean, I guess in some ways I'm nervous too. Like, I would say in some ways I'm not scared, but I am a little nervous just because I don't, like, she works a lot, and I don't want to kind of add more to her plate. I want her to kind of feel like I've got it under control. And the reality is like, I don't know how under control I've got it. So I don't want to give her more things to worry about.
Yeah, you don't want to burden her with, like, just another thing.
Exactly. I don't want to burden her because, you know, she has enough she has to do. And I mean, you know, she's taking care of my brother and I really on her own because our dad died when we were little. Yeah, and I mean, my grandparents are supportive. They live close by, both sides, but you know, they have their own thing, and you know, they have their own lives. So obviously I don't expect them to drop, you know, their lives of, like, volunteering and hanging out with friends and stuff to kind of help me. And if my mom can't even help me with the college process, I don't know how my grandparents could help me, you know?
Yeah, like, they maybe went, maybe didn't, and even again, it's even so long ago that, like, will anything even be the same?
Exactly.
Do you think your mom would feel burdened if you tried to talk to her about this?
I don't think she would.
Okay.
I feel like she's a very caring person, and wants to help. It's just very much her nature that I don't necessarily think that she'd feel burdened. Kind of talking it through. I just don't want to add something else to her pile, you know?
Yeah, so you're worried about giving her one more thing to worry about, but at the same time, you don't think that it would bother her and that she'd be willing to talk about it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so that seems like a little bit incongruent, right? Like,
yeah, that's true. I mean, I can't focus so much on not wanting to burden her when, I mean, she really hasn't displayed that in the past when I've talked to her about things.
What have you talked to your mom about in the past?
Really just, like, minor stuff, like, you know, stuff for school, like, you know, wanting to do another activity, but being concerned about how, like, how am I going to get there, and, you know, if there's a cost associated, things like that. I mean, we're pretty open about a lot of things, so I guess it is kind of silly of me to think that she wouldn't really be helpful or want to hear it, you know, in terms of this. The only, like, major things I've talked to, but even that's kind of limited, is you know, like, talking about my dad, because as much as I would like him here, and as much as I would like to have a relationship with him, you know, he passed when I was really young, so as much as that stinks, like, it hasn't been, as terrible as it sounds, it hasn't been a major adjustment process for my brother and I, because I really don't have memories of him being here, and like adjusting to life without him, because I don't have a lot to go off of. Like I would love to have him here, but I could imagine it being, significantly harder if I was already older and had an established relationship with him and then something happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so like you had a connection, most likely you just don't remember it because you were so young, so it makes the process of grief looks very, very different.
Yeah, and I mean, I've talked to my mom about that, but it's nothing like major because I mean, it really has always been the three of us, and we're pretty. I mean, pretty much my whole life, and we're pretty open. So I know I can talk to her about things, and I guess it's silly that I feel as though this might burden her, but there's so much that goes into it that I just didn't even realize until the counselors started talking about it. So
I don't think it's silly that you're worrying about burdening her. It sounds like you really care about your mom and care about like how she's doing, how she's feeling, how she's kind of getting through the everyday.
Yeah.
So that's what you're thinking about when you're envisioning talking to her and just kind of dealing with this entire process. Is there anything else holding you back from talking to your mom besides the fact that you're worried about burdening her?
I think kind of in some ways kind of related to it, like I'm feeling kind of conflicted about wanting to the allure of going away to school, but also like if I do go away to school, then how is it going to impact my mom and my brother's life?
Okay.
Because now now that I can drive, like I take my brother to school and stuff like that. So that gives mom really kind of one less thing to worry about. And I worry that if I go away to school, how that would affect her routine. So that's kind of something I'm feeling.
Okay, so there's the option of staying close, and there's the option of going far away. Okay, so let's say that you decide to stay close. How does that affect your mom and your brother?
I mean, I don't think it would really affect them that much because it would just kind of be status quo.
Would you still live at home?
I guess if I did live at home, yeah, it would still be kind of status quo. Because I could probably work around like a class schedule to drop him off at school and stuff like that. If I went to school close and lived on campus, it would be more of an adjustment because the day to the day I wouldn't be there. Like I could go home on the weekend if I wanted to, or go home if I went close enough. I could like go home during the week, like to go see a sports game or something like that. But yeah, I'm just feeling kind of like conflicted because in one hand I feel like when you think about college, it's all about, living on campus and having that experience and like, go getting ice cream late at night with your roommates and like decorating your room and things like that. That would be really enticing. But then in the other way, I just don't want to uproot everything as it is now just so I can kind of be selfish and live out, college living on campus when they need help sometimes too.
Is it the idea of change that you feel like is kind of really making you nervous and anxious about this process?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, because thinking about it, it's like this is a new chapter of life. So I guess it is something I'm a little apprehensive about. I don't know how. I just don't know how things would be. And I don't think my family would not be supportive if I wanted to go that route of living on campus and doing things like that. I just don't want to make things more difficult for them. Like we're a family, we help each other out. Like that's what they're for, So I don't want it to be like, oh, just because she wanted to do her thing on campus, now we have to adjust our lives to make things happen.
Okay. So you're also worried about the change that your family would essentially endure if you decide to go off to college.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about it, this idea of leaving potentially to go somewhere far or staying close. Picture yourself staying close. How are you feeling in your first year of college if you've decided to stay somewhere close and let's say live at home?
Okay. I think in some ways it would be interesting because it's a new experience. Going to a new school, taking new classes, kind of developing more of what my interest is. Getting to pick and choose. I would obviously have a little more independence because it's not like, going to school from like 7:30 to like 2 every day. But I guess if I were to go to school close but live at home, I might be missing some of that social piece.
Okay.
Because from what my friends say, like I don't picture, my friends going, somewhere like crazy far. Like I don't picture them going to like, I don't know, Florida or like California or abroad. But I do picture them, having their own experiences at schools, like maybe in New England. That me choosing to live at home, it would be like I don't have that social piece, especially because they're all kind of doing their own thing wherever they've decided to go.
Okay, so you feel like you would be helping your family by staying close, but there's this worry that you wouldn't be fulfilled socially.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's think about staying close to home, but living on campus. How are you feeling about that?
I think that I could see myself feeling more fulfilled socially, because I could have the experience of, living on campus, having a little more flexibility of like, say if I wanted to go to a club meeting at 7, but my classes end at 4, like, what am I going to do on campus for 3 hours? Like, if I was living at home, I'd probably just want to go home because you're tired and you don't have a place to, I guess there's commuter lounges, but who really kind of chills there, it's not like home.
Yeah.
So I could see myself being more fulfilled socially living on campus.
Okay.
Because I would, and it's, a lot of everyone there is new, so it might be easy to make friends and do things like that. Whereas if I'm just going to class, like, and not participating in other things, it might be, I can make friends with some kids in my class, but it might be hard otherwise. And I guess if I went to school close but lived at school, like, it would still be pretty feasible to come home on the weekend. And, spend time with my mom and brother. Or if, like, my brother has a soccer game or something, it won't be too much of an effort or an issue to try to, like, maybe come catch the game on Wednesday and, like, have dinner with my mom. And, like, even if I wanted to stay over, like, kind of hitch a ride back to school early in the morning or something.
Yeah, so you have that kind of convenience factor of being on campus. You feel like it would probably be easier to make those social connections. And you still are close enough that you could potentially go home on even a weeknight if you're super, super close, or come home on the weekends fairly easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the decision between staying at home or just going somewhere close to home is something that I experienced too when I was applying to college. So I ended up going somewhere 15 minutes from where my parents lived. Because I really wanted to be close to home too, and make sure that I could support my parents, because we were going through some different things as a family. So it was really important to me to, like, have close proximity to them. So I kind of went through this back and forth of, would it be better for me to be completely at home, living at home, and just commuting to school, or did I want to have that opportunity to live on campus, and it can feel really conflicting. Like you don't know exactly what's going to be best, and who are you worried about, your family more so, or are you worried about yourself and your experience? So it kind of feels like you're being pulled in two different directions.
Yeah.
Is that how you're feeling?
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling, and thanks for saying that, because it's sometimes I feel like it's me independently kind of thinking that, so it makes me feel a little better. I do feel like I'm being pulled in two different directions, because, you know, a lot of people when they, like, I know I want to go to college, and like a lot of people when they decide like, oh, they're going to college, they're moving on campus and they're decorating the room and like doing things like that. So part of it is, you know, the cool factor, but I also think that's something I could do. Like, I'm not so scared about leaving home that it prevents me from even considering that to be a feasible option. I just don't want to disrupt things. I think I'm worried about disrupting things as they are. Like, if it's not broken, don't fix it, you know? Like I'm able to, you know, obviously my brother and I are at the same school now, but, you know, it's not an issue letting the dog out in the morning when my mom works an overnight and like taking him to school. And I think it's, we could ask for help from like my grandparents or whatever if my mom really needs it, but I also think too it's kind of the pride factor of doing things on our own, that we don't want to involve them, because I mean they have their own lives too. So so I think that's where I'm really kind of feeling a conflict.
Sure. So let's fast forward a year, and these kind of tasks you're talking about doing at home that fall on you. Your younger brother will be a year and a half older. Do you feel like he's capable of kind of stepping in and doing some of the stuff that you've been doing around the house as kind of the oldest kid?
Yeah, I mean, I do think he's capable. I think he's, in some ways, we've kind of like enabled him because he is the youngest.
Yeah.
So not in like a bad way, but it's just like,
it happens.
You're the younger brother. I'll just, it's easier if I do it.
Yeah,
type
I'll
thing.
do it for you.
Yeah,
no big
exactly.
Deal.
So I do think he would be capable of doing things like that. And like you said, at that point, he would be a year older. So, you know, it's not like I'm asking him to do all these things, you know, and it's such a difficult task, you know.
So it sounds like, given him a little bit of time to mature, he'd be able to do some of those things that you're worried about leaving to your mom.
Yeah, I think so.
Does that make you feel better about potentially leaving for college? Or does that give you any sense of, like, security, I guess, for your mom, and knowing that she would have your brother?
I think both. Like, I haven't really thought of it that way. I do think it would be better, because at that point he would be a year older, and it's, you know, there are things that he's capable of. Like, even his age now, he can let the dog out. But it would make me feel better and more secure, because I just don't want more things falling onto her plate. So yeah, I guess it would make me feel like less of a burden is being placed on her, because he can do those things now when I'm not home.
Yeah, and it sounds like he would be able to, and it sounds like it gives you a little bit like a sense of relief to think that he would be able to kind of help around and do these things that you felt a kind of a responsibility to do over the years.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like the idea of potentially staying close but moving on campus is something that you're feeling a little more comfortable with.
Yeah, I think, like, now that we're talking about it, it's something I feel comfortable with, because it's not like if I went to school really far away, like maybe, like, you know, a long drive or a plane ride away, it really wouldn't be easy to come home. And I'd probably just have to, you know, resign myself to the fact that it's like, you know, you're coming home for winter break or like Thanksgiving, and that's it, you know. So I think it is something I'm feeling, living on campus but being close is something I'm feeling a little more comfortable with, because it would kind of provide me with the social outlet I want, but while also not being so difficult that I can't come home when I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. It sounds like it's kind of a best of both worlds situation for you. So hopefully that makes you feel a little bit better, kind of thinking about your next steps and potentially looking at schools or the next things that kind of need to happen in this process. Yeah. We've talked a little bit about the burden you're feeling about placing on your family and how that's playing in. What else is coming up for you as we're talking about it that might be influencing how you're feeling about the whole thing?
I think just the overwhelming amount of like stuff that goes into the college process. Mm-hmm. Like everyone talks about, like I said, I didn't realize there was like a formal way to ask for a letter of recommendation or like to get your transcript mailed or like your first quarter grades that I thought they just sent them to you. And they're like, no, you have to look at them first and decide if you want them sent. And then you have to fill out a form if you do want them going there. So it's like, it's just other things that I guess I hadn't really thought about. I thought it was like an application and essay and that's it. Mm-hmm. And then like the counselors talked a lot about going to visit schools, but I just don't really know how I'm going to make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, go visit. But it's like, I feel like for my friends, their life is so much different than mine that it's more feasible for them to do that.
It's different. How?
I think just because, like, I mean, they have two parents and, like, their parents work, like, normal 9-to-5 jobs. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they're busy as well, but, like, they'll have time on a Saturday to go, like, take a road trip somewhere to look at things. Whereas I feel like for me, if we ever plan anything, like, so if, like a vacation, for example, like, it has to be planned so far in advance to kind of predict what my mom's work schedule will be. And then, like, hope that nothing comes up that she has to cover for someone that it affects, like, us going to the beach by a day or something like that. So, so I feel like it's just not as simple to be like, oh, let's just hop in the car and go somewhere.
Yeah, it seems kind of complicated.
Yeah.
Based on mom's work schedule and trying to kind of figure out and puzzle piece together a time that would work to go on these visits.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them too, like, they had mentioned, like, going to open houses and things. And those are always on, like, specific days and trying to plan that. And it's just, it's another situation where it's like, you know, the huge college fair. It's so many people that it's just, I worry that, you know, it's going to be all of these people talking at me. But I don't know how much it will kind of sink in for me to process.
Yeah, that can be really overwhelming to just hear so much information and have to try and sort through it all when this process in and of itself is just kind of overwhelming, like you were saying. Have you chatted with your mom at all about the possibility of going on any of these college visits?
I haven't really yet. I think just because I haven't really been sure of where I want to kind of look. Okay. Like, I feel like my process so far is kind of like reading what I picked up at the college fair and just like looking on websites. Okay. But I don't know if I have schools yet that are kind of worth, I don't know. I don't know if I have schools yet that I'm feeling jazzed about visiting. Okay. Or, like, worth giving up, like, making sure it works with my mom's schedule and, like, my own schedule of, like, sports and stuff and clubs. And then, I mean, my brother's probably going to come with us. So just making sure it's, like, 3 schedules that happen to align on a certain day, like, for school that it's, like, yeah, I really want to see. So I haven't really talked to her about it yet. Okay. Just because there's nothing that I'm, like, super excited about so far.
Okay, so you want to be really certain before you ask your mom to, like, figure out how to take off work, drive somewhere, and invest
I think, like, you know, when I think of, like, schools around here, like, I'm probably going to apply to UConn because I feel like everyone applies to UConn, and it's a good school. So that's one that I, like, guess I'll eventually go visit, but I'm not at the place where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go this weekend to see them. I think I'm more of like, I have time to figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a similar situation where you were kind of hoping to feel really certain before you made a decision?
I mean, nothing major. It's always been on, like, minor things, like, in terms of activities at school. Like, I'm involved in the band and, like, theater, and I wasn't really sure, like, in addition to sports. And I know last year I had some friends that were, you know, thinking about trying out for the school play, and I was like, I don't really know what I want to, like, if I want to do that or put myself out there. And then, like, there was initial, like, informational meeting, and then after the meeting I was like, this does seem cool, like, I do feel more certain that I want to do this. Okay. So I have just in more, like, minor things, but I've also I guess done things in the past where it's like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, I've just kind of decided to do things without any basis. Okay. Like, I don't always have to have, like, a definitive reason as to why I want to do something. Okay. So maybe for this, I shouldn't have to have a definitive reason of why I want to go visit somewhere.
Okay. Tell me more about
that. Because I think right now I'm so undecided in terms of, like, area that I want to study that it's maybe I shouldn't be putting pressure on myself to be like, okay, I need to know exactly what I want to study before I go visit a school. Okay. So maybe just allowing myself to kind of have a moment to be like, it's okay to not know what you want to study, and maybe just kind of see what they have to offer, and something might, you know, excite you.
So take a chance, visit somewhere, and maybe that'll contribute to you feeling more certain. But it's kind of hard for you to feel certain without any concrete thing.
Yeah, and I think too, like, it's a lot of my friends at school, they're like, oh, I totally want to be a nurse. I totally want to be an engineer, or, like, go into education, things like that. I think for me, there's a lot of things that sound cool about a lot of different things that's why I really don't know what I want, and I guess I don't want to box myself into something when I'm not sure. So I guess I should view it as, like, not pressuring myself to know exactly what I want, because it's possible that even when I enter college, I might still not know what I want.
It's a very real possibility. There's a lot of people out there. I entered college as an undecided major. It's kind of normal these days, it seems. You know, you give yourself a chance to explore and see what you really like before having to make a decision before you even started classes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I mean, that's good to hear too, because I feel like it's good to hear that it's normal, because I feel like amongst, like, my friend group, I'm totally in the minority of not knowing. And it's not even, like, in a mean way. They just all, like, they just, like, oh, they know what they want to do. So it's, like, cool.
Whereas it makes you feel pressure.
Yeah, it's like I have no idea what I want to do. So.
Oh, that makes total sense. I remember feeling that way too. Like, holy moly, I feel like I've got to make a decision, but you don't. It worked out okay for me to, like, take that time. And it sounds like you want to give yourself the opportunity to take that time and really figure out what it is you want to do before committing to something that you're going to have to study for 4 years and then make into a career.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe, like, the more I put pressure on myself to kind of figure out what I want, the more it's kind of keeping me from doing more research and, like, feeling more comfortable.
Does this idea of trying to not put so much pressure on yourself in terms of picking schools to visit help you feel less like you're putting a burden on your mom and your brother and asking them to go to these visits and come along with you, give their input.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, because there's, like, so many schools are so different, and I mean, I just know that from, like, reading online, but, like, at school, they always talk about, you know, each campus, like, you really have to, like, go with the vibe of how you feel on campus and, like, go with your gut as to whether you can picture yourself there. So I guess, like, you know, putting pressure on myself, like, to be like, oh, I have to be certain about, like, UConn, for example, and I go and I'm like, I just don't feel comfortable. That might make things harder for me, because I could have thought I was, like, so sure, and then it doesn't work out. So maybe doing some kind of, like, shopping to see what I feel when I go to see different places might not be a bad option to do.
Yeah, it sounds like it gives you the opportunity to kind of shop around, give yourself kind of concrete experiences to base your decision off of, so you're not just kind of randomly picking out of a bag, like, oh, I'm going to go to UConn, and you haven't had a chance to, like, experience different places and give yourself a little bit of an idea of what you want to do, what college you want to attend, what career you want to pursue, what you want to study. You're giving yourself a chance to kind of explore different things, which sounds like it's something that you want to do, and it would help you.
Yeah, I mean, I think exploring would be beneficial, because I just don't know what I want. So I guess I can't really expect to be 100% sold on a place when I'm not really, like, 100% sold on what I want to study and things like that. So I guess I shouldn't have the same expectation, and I also wouldn't want to, like, have that expectation and, like, go to visit a school and be like, I know I want to go here, and then I go on campus and I'm just like, I don't see myself happy here. So I guess it's not really worth it to kind of put that pressure on myself.
Definitely. So we talked about a lot of different things today. We kind of started with the overwhelming nature and of just, like, going to college fairs, and then, like, the sheer amount of work that it has that has to be put into applying to college. And we talked a little bit about kind of the burden you feel about putting on your family of potentially going somewhere for college, and the burden you feel asking them to come along with these college visits that can kind of be at inconvenient times with work schedule. But we've gotten to a place where you're hoping you can relieve a little bit of pressure from yourself by giving yourself the opportunity to explore different colleges and different experiences and hopefully make a decision. What other kind of thoughts or ideas are in your mind that you feel like we didn't get to in all of that stuff?
I don't know. I don't think there's anything that we didn't get to. I think it's just trying to figure out a way to, like, get past inconveniencing my family.
Okay.
Like, I think I'm feeling a little bit better about, you know, if I decide to live on campus, like, adjustments can be made. But I also, like, even through this whole search process, like, I don't want to waste their time doing things if I don't know that it would be of benefit. And I mean, I know in some ways that it would be good for me to go do some homework and see places. I just don't even know, like, where to start, you know, and to justify that it's good for me to do that without, you know, like, uprooting, you know, schedules and things like that to make it happen.
What resources are there at school potentially to help you kind of figure out where to get started so you're not feeling so lost with millions of things that kind of go into it?
The counselors coming into classrooms has been helpful because they've kind of they've kind of talked about like how to do college searches and things like that. So they were showing us, some websites that you can kind of narrow your searches based on whether you want like a bigger school or a smaller school, where you want to be and things like that. So I mean that's a resource that I could use a little bit more to try to figure things out, because at this point, like, size isn't of a major concern to me. I think I could be okay. Like, I don't want to be somewhere super huge, but I also don't, I also think that, if I was at a place at large, like, everything else kind of fit my criteria, that I could find ways to make it smaller, getting involved in things. I don't want to be at a place where it's like, 100 people, but I also don't want to be somewhere where it's like, 50,000 or something like that. So, but I do know, I think my main criteria is just like being close. So like ideally I'd want to be somewhere in state.
So that helps to narrow things a little bit. Okay, so you can utilize this like online tool essentially that they've given you to start the process of potentially picking out some places. Do you feel comfortable, maybe by the time we meet next, going through that database, I guess, and trying to pull out some schools that you potentially feel like meet your criteria?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can do that, because then it will kind of force me to do a little more homework about places, and to kind of read up. Like, I feel like I've been reading up a lot about different places, but it hasn't been towards anything like concrete. Like, I'll just look at a pamphlet that I got at the college fair and be like, oh, that's cool. They have like a Quidditch club, but like that doesn't mean really anything in terms of a search, So I'll just look for like, random things where it's like, oh, they have this really awesome like 3D printing lab, like that's great, but there's nothing of like, not of substance, but like things that I really should be finding out more about. I've kind of just been reading to pick out like, oh, what makes a school unique, or like have cool facts, but not like hardcore researching.
Okay, so hopefully this tool can give you a way to narrow, and then you can really go more in depth to hopefully find more substantive, I guess, information about the schools. So then you can make a decision about where to visit, and hopefully alleviate a little bit of that kind of sense of burden that you would be placing on your family, your mom specifically, and asking them to go visit these new places with you.
Yeah, because I think in some ways it's kind of unrealistic of myself to put so much pressure on, like, I have to know exactly like that I'm sold on this place, or like exactly what I want to do before going to visit, but I also don't want to like waste their time either and just like go somewhere because I'm like, oh, the campus is pretty. Like I think it should be more of like a happy medium, that I've like done some research, so I'm not going into it, with no concept, but also allowing myself the opportunity to like find out more things that I didn't know.
Definitely. So you feel comfortable with that being your homework kind of this next week, just coming up with that list that feels like a comfortable first step in this kind of big process that we've been talking about?
Yeah, I think I feel comfortable, and it'll kind of help me, it'll help me feel a little less anxious about things, especially too if I'm able to find schools that I'm feeling good about, that are still close enough for me, if I decide to live on campus, like close enough for me to be able to come home without it being a major ordeal.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, sounds good. So we have just about 5 minutes left. I know we talked about a lot of stuff, so I just want to recap a little bit before before we end and talk about next sessions.
Okay.
So we talked about the college process, and now it's kind of feeling overwhelming, and specifically feeling like you will potentially burden your mom by going somewhere different or asking her to go on these college visits with you, and also feeling overwhelmed by the sheer amount of stuff that goes into applying for college. But we also talked about ways to kind of take that pressure off yourself, or areas where potentially you don't need to feel so burdensome, and being able to kind of take some steps to make sure that you aren't putting the burden on your family. Does that kind of feel like everything that we talked about? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, no, I don't think you did. I think you kind of recapped it really well, because that's my goal, like to find out information and to feel a little more comfortable without feeling as though I'm making their life harder.
Definitely. So we talked about a first step that you can take in this process of going through that database. You have some criteria that'll help. You want to stay in state, which that narrows it down a lot, right? So you're going to use that database to potentially find some schools, and then really do a little more in-depth research, so that you're feeling like you're making an informed decision moving forward and potentially visiting. So it's not like you're just randomly picking out of a hat and then asking your mom to take off work or rearrange her schedule to be able to help you pick those schools. So that still feels comfortable and like something you can do? Okay.
That feels good.
So when we meet next, go ahead and bring that list, and we can kind of talk through how you're feeling about those things and how you kind of came to decide that those are potential places, and then potentially work on chatting with your mom about finding times to visit.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan, and it sounds like something I could do.
Okay, awesome. So does this time still work for you next week? I know you're really busy, so I just want to make sure.
I'm free, always free at this time. So
okay, awesome. So we'll plan on meeting again at around this time. And I'm available during normal business hours. Should you ever need anything, have any additional thoughts, questions, you can give the office a call, and if I'm not busy, I'll definitely pick up. If not, I'll return your message. But if anything happens outside of business hours over the weekend that you feel like you want to chat about, go ahead and send me an email, just so we can make sure that we're talking. And if you need anything, I'm more than happy to help.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, awesome. So we'll see you at this time next week, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what you find through that homework.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Okay, have a good one.
Thank you. You too.